Well, it shows me up here. Can you guys see me or not? Because it's supposed to come up and say that I'm live, but it says I'm offline. But but I see myself, so let me know. Are you guys seeing me? Okay, Scott Briller has given me the okay. I don't know what's going on with YouTube tonight, but we'll just go forward, and hopefully it stays okay. First off, good evening to everybody. I can see the excitement that is building on the pre-show chat. I'm Joe Chaffee. For those of you who are new to the channel, welcome to my YouTube channel. And if you like what you see, take the opportunity to hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a thing, and you get to be updated and notified when new live streams come up, which is at least once a day. I am here tonight, by the way. We're going to temper that excitement that's on the board, because I know everybody's already, talking about the next weather system that is going to impact the East. And really, we have a long way. For the first time in a while, we don't have a system front and center, and where we were dealing with the last 7 or 8 weeks, where we've had at least 2 weather systems a week to deal with. And we are faced with this rather unusual situation here in my neck of the woods and in the eastern part of the U.S., where this entire week looks relatively dry and relatively tranquil. It is going to be a week where we're going to see a downtrend in temperatures, especially when we get to Friday and Saturday, because that's when the coldest of the cold air comes in. There's one cold front that moves through on Thursday. So up until then, we're going to be peppered with some lake effect action, and that really is about it. We have a storm that's going to be coming into the west on Wednesday. That is going to make its way across the Gulf states, and then after that, the big question marks are popping up all over the place. And of course, everyone is kind of digging into all the weather models and seeing what they are doing. We're going to do all of that tonight. I want to just kind of emphasize here, going forward, this is a point where, when you're looking at something this far in advance, this is not a point where you look at it to make a forecast. This is a point for you, and those of you who are young forecasters, or maybe not so young forecasters, or perhaps you're new to the game. This is where you really just kind of continually digest what is going on, what the models are doing, what is the flavor of the upper air, what is the jet stream pattern, what is all of this telling you going down the road. You're not going to be in any kind of position to make any sort of forecast that is remotely close until you get into at least inside the 5-day range. We're not there yet. We've got at least another 2 days, and really, in terms of specifics, you really got to get into 72 hours. We're still seeing models adjusting and moving things around. I haven't, necessarily discounted anything. We're going to look at these snapshots of the atmosphere, which is what the model runs really are. They take snapshots of the atmosphere at a given moment with the data, and then they take that and use that in their equations to forecast out for 7 days. We're going to go over what it all means and what it doesn't mean and what it could mean. So if you want an absolute answer now, you're just not going to get it, and no one's going to give it to you. Anyone who claims to give it to you this far in advance, it's basically a lucky guess, okay, if whatever winds up happening. I just think to a local forecaster who a week ago said unequivocally that we would be seeing a nor'easter here for tomorrow and for Wednesday. So we know what happened to that particular prediction. That's why you don't look at these things now and say with certitude that one thing is going to happen over another. There are certain things that you're going to favor with respect to the longer term, and we're going to talk all about that. We're going to look at the upper air. So first off, I'm just going to bring the WPC's, the Weather Prediction Center's view going out to the next 7 days in terms of precip. And you'll notice how they have it drawn. And I've said many times that I really like WPC's 7-day map because they seem to really do a fairly good job in getting a handle on the long range as far as how they see precip is concerned. And you'll notice now, again, much of the east being dry for all of this week and into the weekend. So all of this precip you're seeing is going to be coming from the one storm. So at least we're not having to cut it up in pieces. But you are seeing the darker blue, which is your first line of 3/4 of an inch to an inch up into southern Delaware and up toward the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. And if you want to go to the darkest green, that's 1/4 to 1/2 an inch. So again, this is all how they view things. And then if the amounts get even lighter as you go further north and west, except in and around the lakes. And of course, you've got the storm coming in the west, so you've got pretty heavy rainfall right up and down the coast of California of several inches or more going up to southern parts of Oregon. So it's interesting that WPC has as aggressive a look at the precip that it has, considering that the models for a number of runs, not all of them, but for a number of runs, have kept precip suppressed pretty far to the south. So let's go to that now. We're going to start taking a look at what the model guidance has to offer. Since there really isn't too much happening here short range, we'll save that for the very end, and we'll get right to the model analysis here as we move forward. Okay, so I'm going to start off. We're going to start off with the 12Z run of the GFS. I'm going to run it backwards just to get it back to the real time so we can take a look. First off, we're going to look back at how this all started. Let me, by the way, take the opportunity at this time. I just want to say welcome to the folks from S&S Storm Chase and Forecast team. You folks are on tonight from South Central Pennsylvania and North Central Maryland. Welcome aboard, and of course from other areas as well in the Mid-Atlantic states. We have New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Storm Watch folks on board. We have folks from my weather page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and we have folks from Angry Ben's Angry Weather. And also my Patreon folks are on. My snow removal guys might be watching too. So welcome everybody. And my app, okay, my app that's on Google Play. That's for free for New York City, Long Island, New Jersey, Hudson Valley, and southern Connecticut. Okay, so here's how the upper air has evolved as we went through Friday and the weekend. Of course, we had the storm in the Central Plains and upper Midwest. We had bouts of severe weather out of this in parts of the eastern Gulf states and along the southeast coast. Now that trough is doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is stretching out, and we've been pointing out that we've got this, bowl pattern that is setting up, and we have two short waves, one that's moving through Tuesday night and Wednesday. Now that's going to make a low out in the Atlantic that's not going to bother us, so that goes out. And then you have this second short wave, and this is at the point where I'm going to go to the paint box. So give me 1 second here. I'm going to set that up. And this is the upper air jet stream pattern. I'll bring it up to the screen so you guys can see. And I'm assuming everything is working on YouTube's end of it, so hopefully it is. Okay, let me just give you guys one quick check. Oh, yep, looks like everything is working on the map, on the screen wise, even though it keeps telling me I'm offline, but no matter. All right, so you got the we got the paint box up, and so here's your upper air. And let's start by we're going to look. We're at Thursday now. This is Thursday afternoon. We're going to have a cold front coming through in the northeast with a reinforcing surge of cold air. That front's going to go down through the Ohio Valley as well, and it's going to be pushing cold air into the east, the Mid-Atlantic, and also it's going to bleed down into the southeastern part of the United States. There's a short wave from Wednesday is way out south of Nova Scotia. This is swinging through. You'll notice that the upper pattern is pretty broad here in terms of the flow, kind of a gentle bowl where the winds bottom out through the mid-Atlantic states. There are a couple of a little bit hard to see, but there are some embedded short waves in the flow, in that northwest flow going up into northern Canada. Then we've got the storm that's coming in to California, and that's represented by this upper low that you see just to the west of Los Angeles on Thursday, and that's caught in the southern part of the jet stream, which is kind of running like this. Okay, so it comes down and then sort of rolls its way across the southern states and then on out into the Atlantic. Now, let's assume, okay, let's assume that nothing changes here in the flow, except for the fact that the system that's off the California coast rolls along in that southern part of the jet stream. That's where you would have it moving straight to the east and then moving out probably somewhere off the Georgia coast or even off the coast of North Florida and heading out to the open waters of the Atlantic. But we know that the upper pattern is going to change as we move through time, and indeed it does. And the part we're going to pay attention to, probably the most attention to really, is the northern part of the jet stream. So I'm going to jump to Sunday morning. And this is from, again, the 12Z run. Actually, this is, let me get the right time frame here. So now we're going to go through to Sunday morning here. And I'm going to put that back up on the paint box so you guys can see. All right, hang on. Bear with me, folks. There we go. So now you should be seeing the map from Sunday. And now you can see how the upper air has changed over over North America. So your flow, and let's get this drawn. So now you've got the northern part of the jet stream. Instead of shooting down from northern Canada, it's kind of flowing from west to east. It's completely separated from the southern part of the jet stream, which is down here, and you've got this big gap. All right, so right in here, you have some kind of upper low somewhere. It's sitting there, and if you follow the logic here, again, you've got really no place for any surface low to go, except for the fact that it will probably form somewhere riding right along the southern parts of the Gulf states, right off the southeast coast, and it's going to move with the flow. It would want to go straight to the east, assuming that that northern part of the jet stream doesn't get out of the way. The big issue, there's two issues here in my view with regards to what may or may not happen in the long haul. Is the northern jet going to be so dominant and so far to the south? If you notice on the map, the southern part of those westerlies go all the way down into northern Virginia and the Delmarva Peninsula. There would be no way on Earth that this thing would be able to move up the East Coast in the face of that. It can only really go straight to the east because that northern part of the jet is shown to be suppressive. But the question then becomes, well, is the model correct on this? And, well, it might be, and then again, it might not. The latest GFS run, which we'll bring up here on the upper air, has a slightly different look to it. And I think this is what we're going to see. When you start to get closer and closer to the time frame in question, you're going to see the model continue to adjust, because as it gets closer to the time frame, usually the errors are going to get smaller and smaller. On its recent run, for the same time period, we have that southern part of that northern jet is much further to the north. It gets down to about New York City. You also have a much better and rather much stronger reflection of the upper system, that is the storm coming into California, and you have it right there, okay? So this is one of the reasons why those of you who have seen the 18Z model run shows a much less suppressed system that winds up getting a little further north. The problem is that you still have enough of that northern part of the jet stream is still far enough south where it will only be able to get so far north and then just kind of get shoved out to the east. And if you follow this, the upper feature here on the GFS, I'm going to be doing a lot of switching back and forth here, so hopefully I will do this correctly. So here you have that from Sunday afternoon, that northern jet starts to pull up somewhat, but the southern part of that jet stream is still pretty suppressed. There's actually, when we get into Monday night, which is a little bit past the point where everything's just about done, but if you take a look at what the model is showing when we get back to Monday night, you have another shortwave in the northern stream that comes down right in here, okay? And then you have this. You notice that the two streams here, the northern part of the jet and the southern part of the jet, are separate, okay? They are unphased. If you were to get the northern part of the jet, if it feeds down another shortwave that winds up trying to phase with this, then you would also have a way of bringing a system up the East Coast. The problem is that the timing on this run is just wrong. The southern stream feature is too far to the east. The northern stream feature, timed out this way, is too far to the northwest, so that by the time that phasing occurs, okay, and it does eventually does occur, it happens when that system is way out and gone, okay? And now you got the whole trough just kind of swinging around. So this is what we are faced with respect to this system coming in for this weekend. The fact that whenever you have splits like this in the upper air, it becomes problematic. The other point of discussion today for folks was the Canadian model, and I think we're going to take a look at that tonight. See, here I'm going to just jump to Sunday on the Canadian model. The Canadian model has its shortwaves timed differently than the GFS and the European, okay, which leads to a different solution. So let me bring that map up here, and I will bring it up on the screen for you. Okay, so this is what the Canadian did today, and this is the model that actually brought this storm up the coast just offshore, where it would bring precip up to coastal areas from New Jersey to southern New England. How much remains to be seen, but there would be certainly a sharp cutoff on the northwest side. But the Canadian model has your northern shortwave here, your southern shortwave is back through here. They're much closer together, okay? So this would argue for the possibility that you would get maybe not a full, complete phase, but enough of a phase where a surface low will attempt to, do something more like this, okay, as opposed to doing something like going out straight to the east. So here we have a couple of models. We've just shown you the GFS. We've just shown you the Canadian. Now let's take a look at what the European is doing. And by the way, this is a good time as any to just remind everybody that our maps are courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com. I'm going to jump on the European to Monday morning. It's a bit of a disjointed look sometimes when I'm switching from these models, but I'm just trying to illustrate, I want to illustrate these different points and different places that the models are taking us with all of this. But now here's the European's view come Monday morning. So you've got southern stream shortwave and upper feature. Actually, it has a fairly vigorous upper feature here, just to a large degree. I think of all the models, it probably does the most with the upper low. And now you also have this in the northern stream, okay? But the European, with its northern stream shortwave, is very weak. It doesn't extend anywhere far enough south where you might even consider that this could possibly phase. And then as a result of all this, the European winds up suppressing and actually kind of squashes this system once it moves out over the coastal waters. Here's the upper low, and it basically moves off the North Carolina coast and then heads toward the actual surface low on the European moved east-southeast, south of Bermuda, because of how it has the trough offshore. So the game going forward for forecasters is not only to figure out how vigorous is the southern stream going to be, but what's the northern stream going to do. It seems that based on these models, you have to consider the fact that that at the end of the day, at least for areas north of southern Virginia, that it's going to be very, very difficult to bring a storm up the East Coast given this upper air pattern. It just doesn't sit right with what's happening. That's, again, from what we're seeing now. But what we're going to be looking for in the next couple of days is any changes in the structure in the northern jet part of the jet stream and in the southern part. I think the northern part is probably the more important one to look for change. The other possibility is that if the northern jet can pull up just enough, and if the southern system is a bit more vigorous, you might be able to get this to move further north around the southern part of the jet. It will still only be able to get so far north before it turns to the east. I think it's highly unlikely that you're going to wind up with a system that is going to impact areas the further north you go. So like if you want to make the case that it brings snow to the coastal cities, and I'm even going to leave Boston out of this because I think really that would be that has virtually no chance of happening with that northern jet from what I'm seeing now. And when a weatherman says when a meteorologist says virtually, no chance, that's always a dangerous thing to say. I've been led down that particular path several times before in my career, and sometimes it winds up coming back to haunt you. But no matter. The late afternoon GFS run brings this low out a little bit further to the north, brings it up along the Carolina coast near Hatteras, and this is at the point now where it's kind of has to make a decision. And that northern jet is lying so perilously close that it's only going to be able to make so much headway. And then the surface low, which initially slows down and just sits there for a while, eventually just gets kicked out to the east. But it did lift the precip up further north and west. We have seen many instances in the last 3 years where weather models have been too suppressed and too far out to the east, only to find these systems come back to the north and west. So I guess the overall view on all of this, in my opinion, at this point, is that if I had to make a forecast, if you had to say make a forecast right now, I really would have to say that for areas from, say, the northern part of the Delmarva Peninsula on northward, probably won't see much of anything from this. I also would say that there's probably a risk for significant precip for the interior parts of the southern mid-Atlantic states and then going down into perhaps even into northern Georgia and back through Tennessee. I think the GFS is cold, is probably too warm based on how the operational GFS has behaved in the last 2 years. That's my opinion on it. Now we're going to go to the parallel GFS. I've been paying a little more attention to the parallel GFS, if only because of the fact that it seems like it's been behaving a bit better lately, and it's made some good calls, and I think it's got a good handle on the on how it views the cold air. So going into the weekend, by the way, we should mention that the significant rains that come into California then translate to significant rains for West Texas and for much of Texas, with some sleet and freezing rain on the northern edge of this come late Friday. We're at Monday here. The weather is so quiet that we actually have to go ahead out 4 days before we start talking about some weather that's going to have impact. Based on this run, you've got snow in southern Kansas and through Missouri. Low pressure near New Orleans moves onto the Florida Panhandle. This is by Saturday evening, and you've got snow, the way it sees it, for North Carolina, Southern Virginia, back through Kentucky, maybe even into northern Tennessee, and over into northern Arkansas. The surface low goes into southeast Georgia. One of the things I'm noticing here, I haven't seen this, I'm just kind of looking at this with you for the first time. Then we're going to look at the upper air. I'm noticing that the surface highs here are much further to the north than what they were on the prior runs of the GFS and the European, and that's important because that might be that's telling us that perhaps that northern part of the jet is pulled up a bit further to the north. So this is Sunday morning, and now we're into actually 7 a.m. Sunday. Low sitting right near Wilmington. You've got heavy snow in southern Virginia into the North Carolina mountains, snowing through all of Virginia, West Virginia, and maybe some lighter snows on the northern fringe up into Maryland. And then by afternoon, we've got a low sitting just to the east of Hatteras. You've got some light snows even into southern New Jersey. And now this is, I guess, the magic moment on the parallel to see what the parallel does. But here we go. So now we're going to go to Sunday evening, and it gets a little bit further up to about Monmouth County in New Jersey, and then out. Okay, so it is edging a bit further to the north on the parallel GFS. I think its view is certainly reasonable considering what we're dealing with. So why don't we take a look at what it did on the upper air. And let me just run this back so you can follow the short wave in that southern part of the jet stream, and then this strong trough, the cold shot of air that's coming in for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday into the northeast. And it's starting to pull out. It just pulls out a little bit more. You see, you got that upper low sitting in eastern Kentucky there. See, this is where you got to be a little bit careful because that northern jet does pull up enough. It does pull up more than prior runs. You're seeing that upper flow trying to back a little bit off the southeast coast. And then you're also seeing a short wave that's running from Lake Winnipeg down into Wisconsin. If you look up near the Canadian border, I'll run it back again, but you can see there's energy that's dropping down there. This is where it's attempting to try to phase, but it never really quite gets there. And the two streams do stay separate. So we're no closer to any conclusion here. The late afternoon model trends are what they are. So we will just have to defer now to, we're gonna be at this, I think, at least through Wednesday in settling this argument. Perhaps the models are not done with how the upper air is ultimately going to look like. And we will probably see some more movement in things going forward. But as far as a final answer is concerned, that is just, again, not going to happen right now. So hang on one second, because I'm going to come over to the chat board and we'll go through some of your questions. In the meantime, I just want to bring up the SPC's map. We do have a marginal risk in the northern part of Florida for severe weather tonight. It's the only place where we have any issues, and we're not going to have any severe weather risk for the next couple of days, except maybe in California they might wind up with a marginal risk of severe weather there come Wednesday, when that storm moves its way inland. And as far as watches and warnings are concerned, there's really nothing on the map at all with respect to that, so we're not going to worry about that so much for tonight. And now just let me find what I did with that window. And there it is. Okay, so let me just bring this back up. I just want to switch off and take a look at just a couple of things that are going on tonight on the radar. Well, actually, before we get to that, there was one thing I wanted to show you here. So this is the storm in question that we're waiting for it to come inland. Pretty impressive there on the satellite. You can see that comma signature of a strong system. There's an even stronger one up to the north over the Aleutians, spinning away, heading up toward Alaska. I'll put the latitude and longitude on so you can gain some perspective. So the Hawaii down at 120 north there and about 155 to 160 west. So this thing is still pretty far out. You see where the 180 is the international date line. And we can also put on, you know, the fronts and the highs and lows. Of course, it goes crazy with all these computer analyzed highs. But there's your occluded system that is out of the Pacific. It's still a ways away from making landfall. We've got to wait for that whole the entire upper trough, the upper low, to come inland, and that's not going to happen until we get to Wednesday. As far as the radar is concerned tonight, we do have a little bit of lake effect action going on, coming into western New York now and in parts of northwestern Pennsylvania, northeastern Ohio as colder air moves in. Still a little bit of leftover rain in Maine. And we do have some showers and thunderstorms in the southeast and down into North Florida, where we have the severe weather risk, and that's the tail end of this weather front going by. And in the west, at the moment, up and down the west coast, it's pretty quiet. I did, by the way, pull up this surface map. This is from December 21st, 22nd, 1989. Okay, believe it or not. One of my Patreon regulars, who is from North Carolina, from coastal North Carolina, had said to me that, you know, he's not too far from Wilmington, and mentioned that they had over a foot of snow out of this, and it was the one and only time that he's actually experienced a white Christmas. But I thought the map was pretty interesting to go back and look, with a low that wound up being well offshore. But one of the things that struck me on this was this big Arctic high that came down, and we had temperatures. If you look at some of these readings here, it was, I mean, brutally cold. You had below zero readings down to, you know, central Illinois. Chicago was 9 below here, 6 below at Milwaukee. You had this cold air with single digits going into Kentucky, and teens in Tennessee and into Arkansas, 20s across northern Mississippi, northern Alabama. And this low wound up eventually bringing some very heavy snows. It wasn't a particularly deep low, but that Arctic boundary just swept southeastward on the 22nd and pulled all these coastal temperatures down into the upper 20s and low 30s, and they got into a solid shield of precip, and as a result, you wound up with a rare white Christmas for coastal areas of North Carolina. And there you can see the front going by and reporting, you know, snow on the obs here. Look at these temperatures, like right on the coast, 19, 23, 28. If you went down to Myrtle Beach on that particular weekend, that was not exactly the best choice. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up as remember, we're only in the very beginnings of the month of December, and the average temperatures are going to drop another 7 or 8 degrees between now and Christmas. So the air masses you get now from Canada and the air masses that you might get a couple of weeks from now can be totally different and a lot colder. So just bear that in mind. We're still very early in the game with the winter time. It's just started. Okay, and as soon as this pattern changes to where we warm up for a couple of days, which we probably will do during the mid part of the month, you're going to have a lot of people coming on and saying that winter is over. I guarantee you are going to have a lot of people saying that. Okay, just coming back to you guys on the chat board here. One of the plus sides through all of this is the fact that at least for the dry week, the rainfall amounts, there's so many cities that are where the rainfall in the eastern part of the United States is somewhere in the top 3 all time. At least from that standpoint, you're getting a bit of a break here before we get the whatever additional precip winds up falling in the next couple of weeks. Let's see. The GFS model had all rain for New Jersey on November 15th. Remember that that was also a different scenario, because you did have a cold high up to the north that was wedged down, and a lot of warm tropical warm advection that was coming up. That was going to be a snow changing to rain situation regardless, but we did just happen to have enough cold air with that, New York Jets fans. And I know I saw Ryan Kane and the where's my other Ryan? Where'd he go? Trying to find him because I got two Ryans on board here. Ryan Ford, where'd you go? Well, look, I noticed I saw you guys, try not to, this is where you don't wish cast, okay? This is where you look at everything as objectively as you can. Too many weak shortwaves in the Northern Jet. David Schwartz, that's absolutely correct. That's one of the problems here, is that you've got too many players out there in the upper air. When you have a lot of shortwaves, it makes things very, very difficult, because you don't know which shortwave does the model have correct. It might have them all correct. It might have them all incorrect. It might have some of them too strong, some of them too weak, and that all impacts everything as you move down the road. Brandon Doherty, amazing how the upper air always shows you what's truly going on. I think the storm is almost DOA. When a storm is hyped as much as this one, it usually doesn't pan out. Well, I won't disagree with you. I try not to. I try to stay completely uninvolved with all of that stuff, because the hyping that does happen comes almost reflexively now, and it's on cue. The minute a model shows something at least 10 days out, you're gonna see a post from somebody that's going to announce the imminent arrival of death and destruction over a certain particular area with regards to snow, which at the end of the day does melt. Okay, I just try not to get wrapped up in all of that, and I just stay focused on what is going on. What are the models doing? What is where am I going with my forecast? Okay, at the end of the day, which I have not made yet. I mean, that's the one thing you've got to remember through all of this. I have not made any definitive forecast yet, because I don't think anyone is in any kind of position to make any kind of forecast yet. I think you can outline some risks from what I'm seeing. If you're in the northern parts of what's considered the Gulf states, or the southern areas of the Tennessee Valley, the interior areas of North and South Carolina, maybe even into North Georgia, on up into Western Virginia, down to just to about Richmond, from on the east end part, somewhere in there. I think this might not be a bad opportunity to pay a little bit of attention over the next few days to see how this evolves. But there's no sense, there's certainly no sense of imminent, anything imminent here. I mean, we're at Monday and we're talking about something 6 days in advance. We have to kind of learn how to absorb all this and take these things. Every model run is another emotional roller coaster, especially for snow lovers, because they live and die by every model run, and they have no idea of what's really happening, no idea of what the context is, no sense of what's going on in the upper air, and that's then what are you doing? Then you're just basically reading a map, and I think we all can do that. You can all look at any of these maps and figure out what they, what the surface maps in particular, you can't use those maps to make a forecast. You can't look at a map 7 days out and say, okay, my forecast is this, all right, because it just doesn't work that way. And if you try to do your weather forecasting that way professionally, you wouldn't be doing your weather forecasting for very long, because you'll be burned you're going to be burned 9 out of 10 times if you do it that way. Helez Beloy, hi, welcome to the channel. You need to know about Durham, North Carolina weather Friday night into Saturday. Dry and cold. Nothing's going to happen there until probably Sunday, later Saturday night into Sunday. So I think you're fine for Friday night into Saturday. Let's see. I'm just want to make sure I'm going through your questions. How the Canadian, the most oppressive, got it almost spot on. Well, look, the Canadian model 5,000 videos with no subscribers does occasionally hit a home run. It did it a couple of times last winter. It strikes out most of the time, but it does hit home runs every once in a while. I think an argument can be made that the Canadian model should be able to handle the issues that are in the northern part of the jet stream perhaps a bit better than the other models do. But I don't know. I don't necessarily know that that is the case. Some people have said that it does. I don't know. My experience with the Canadian model is that of all the models, it seems to be the one that performs less than the GFS, less than the European. I would argue that I would use the UKMet before it as well. I like the UKMet in the wintertime. I think the UKMet a lot of times does a very good job and catches things in the short range that sometimes the other models miss. So, and the UKMet only goes out right now to 144 hours, so it's not out far enough. It matches with the other global models are doing, but I can't see beyond that, so it just kind of stops when the low is sitting somewhere along the South Carolina coast. And it doesn't matter if I like the model or not, it's how you would technically interpret it. I think that's a fair point. Yeah, you might... I've seen people make sort of these emotional attachments to models, and I don't quite understand that. There's almost, some people have unbreaking relationships with the European model. I've never really approached it that way. I try to figure out what models got the hot hand and go with it until such time, and I'm always constantly looking for that model to stop being the hot hand. And that means you got to be alert on two fronts. First, that you're making a forecast, and you're eventually going to perhaps use a model that's going to stop working for a period of time, and you might get caught when that happens. So you have to be a little bit careful. The UKMet is the UK Met is the British model. To respond to Casey's question, thank you, Timothy Veltman. Reading tea leaves, maybe the NAM will nail it by Thursday. Well, you know what? It's the in a sense we are kind of doing that here. We're looking at what the models are visualizing, what the atmosphere is, but we have no idea that was reality. And maybe when I personally look forward to these types of storms when it does get into the range of the NAM, because I understand the NAM model, and I've worked, for me, it's one of my go-to models in the short range, because I think it does very, very well. I know there are people that professionally would have arguments with that, but you can't deny that last year in particular, the NAM was incredibly good inside the short range time frame. So, and we're not going to be anywhere near inside the NAM short range time frame for this until late Thursday, early Friday. So we have all that time between now and then to come to grips with everything that is going on. Okay, so I think we'll call that a day. How's that? All right, so let me just do a little bit of shameless self-promotion. And one of those things that I forgot to do tonight, by the way, is I forgot to notify my live stream folks that I was on live. So hopefully they got the message from other sources. Oh boy, this is what happens when you're in this new world of technology that we live in. It's not just one thing you got to do, but there's like dozens of things you got to do in preparation for a live stream, and it's very easy to forget. So I think I'm going to have to soon go by way of sticky notes to make things work and make sure I get everything done that I need to do. KC Red Dragon. I'm not going to pull up the snow map for the parallel GFS. If anybody wants to go look at it, you can go to tropicaltidbits.com. That's the map source that we use. They're a great site. Levi Cowan does a wonderful job. and it's not it's kind of useless to look at it. It's printing it off of whatever it's whatever it's doing with its model snapshot. So yeah, I'm sure it's got some crazy amounts, but what's the point? All right, so for those of you in the New York City, Long Island, New Jersey, Lower Hudson Valley, coastal Connecticut area, particularly northern New Jersey, here is the link to my free Google app. I don't know why didn't it, okay, I'm having a little bit of trouble here on the chat board. I guess this might have something to do with the whatever's going on with YouTube showing me as being offline. I don't know why. But, all right, here, look, folks, go to Google Play, put in Joe Chaffee, and you can pull down my app. If you're living outside the area, it's completely free. You know, I do put my website posts on the app, so if you want to read about my long range, it's easy to do it on the app because you just get it seamlessly, and you know, you also get a notification when that new post is up. All right. Those of you who are interested in a full-time 24/7 weather experience should take a look at my my Patreon platform, where I've got a basically a 24/7 weather platform going on. Let me just make that a bit smaller. I mean, I just had my little obnoxious moment there. But for those of you who are interested, this is a subscription platform, and you can just go to Patreon. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and it's just $2 a month. Those of you who might need more one-on-one with me, there's some higher tiers there available, but you get a lot for just the $2. Plus, you can message me at any time, and we look at weather, you know, during the day. We look at weather at night, give you a heads up on what the models are doing that I don't necessarily post on my website. We're going to have a live Joe and Joe weather show tonight on my Facebook page at 9:15. Scott Briller is reminding me that next Wednesday, December the 12th, I will be, for you, those of you on Long Island, I will be at the Babylon Library in Babylon at 7 o'clock. You make a good PR agent, Scott. I appreciate you reminding me. Thank you. So that's at 7 o'clock, Wednesday, December 12th at the Babylon Library, and we're going to be talking winter weather, so pretty much what we're talking about now, and maybe we'll be in a position to do a post-mortem on this system when we get to next Wednesday. All right, I think that just about covers it tonight, folks. Have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.